Welcome into Overtime, presented by McDonald's. Dewey, Dailey, along with John Bruce for today's show, episode 15 of the podcast. We've been doing this for about 8 weeks now, so we're getting close to 2 months on the show. Should be a fun one here on this Tuesday. We'll talk some volleyball and then golf and cross country, and then wrap it up with some boys and girls soccer as we inch a little bit closer to tournament time here in the fall sports season.
Yeah, this one might be a little abbreviated, just as we're getting closer to tournament times. But we're still going to highlight some impact players, some games to watch, and then also definitely talk. There's a couple things in golf I want to talk about that are ridiculous. For cross country, you mentioned it. Next week's show, I think we'll have a good bit more cross country in it because a lot of conference championships are coming up in the next week or so. So we'll be able to talk about that, and we're going to talk about some golf, and as they get deeper into the tournament, they had sectionals last week and going into the districts this week. So it should be an exciting time for the golfers and, the footy players as soccer tournament draws will come out next week, as we'll go a little more in depth on the tournament draws for next week as well. But I got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite Pooh Bear?
Pooh Bear?
Yeah.
I don't know what a Pooh Bear is.
It's Winnie the Pooh. Just say Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh?
Yeah, so I saw the new Winnie the Pooh movie last night, Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, which was...
Blood and Honey?
Yeah, so apparently after a certain amount of time, characters go into the public domain and anybody can make it, you don't have to have copyright permission anymore. So where Disney was making the Winnie the Pooh movies, well, somebody was like, oh, we're going to make a Winnie the Pooh as he's a murderer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I watched it last night. Don't watch it. Not good.
So what was it on?
It's actually on Peacock. So it's actually on something.
Of course.
It was made for $100,000, which I disagree with. Christopher Robin was not in it very much.
Is that the voice?
That's the boy, yeah. Well, yeah, all that stuff. And Winnie the Pooh and Piglet's masks were not very well done. It was, if you like bad movies, you might want to watch it. But overall, don't watch it. I love bad movies.
I wasn't planning on it. I didn't even know it existed. But...
Yeah, you're not missing much on that.
All right, so we'll jump straight into volleyball with 3 match reviews from the previous week. Had a couple big league matchups and also one non-league matchup we'll wrap up the segment with. But first, North Adams at Peebles. These were the 2 remaining undefeated teams in the Shack, both in the Shack 1. This game was on Thursday. North Adams wins 3-2, 25-21 in the first for North Adams, and then they fall 12-25 before winning the third set 25-20. Fall in the fourth set 20-25, and then wrap it up in the fifth 15-10. North Adams now 12-4, 9-0 in the Shack. The only remaining team that is undefeated in the league. Albria Meade had a team high with 13 kills. Caitlin Borger, who I don't know if is still, but the last time I checked was leading the league in kills. She had 11. And then Natalie Reagan, only a sophomore, had 33 assists. That was a game high, also had 18 digs. North Adams is on the road, they're at home on Wednesday. They'll take on Hillsborough, so a little non-league action for them. For Peebles, actually their second loss of the week. They've had a bit of a tough stretch here, as I believe now they've lost 4 in a row. As they dropped a game on Saturday to Notre Dame, and then last week in general they finished the 2 weeks ago they finished it up with a loss to Notre Dame, and then last week a 3-1 loss on Monday to Paint Valley, and then losses last week on Tuesday and this game on Thursday to Fairfield and North Adams. It's always tough when you have to play, as of now, the top 2 teams in your league on
back-to-back days.
You're not back-to-back days, but back-to-back league days.
And it seems like not playing their best volleyball at the same time. It's just the worst time to do it.
Right.
So,
but in the match, Cadence Carroll, this was sort of the bright spot, had 16 kills. That was a game high. Ellie Stevens and Kennedy Dick both, we've seen them share assists. They were pretty close. Ellie Stevens had 14 and Kennedy Dick had 13. They're on the road on Tuesday. They got to go to White Oak. White Oak is 9-6, so they have a winning record, but a good chance for the Indians to get back on or in the winning ways. Is like I said, they've dropped 4 straight now. So
yeah, so that's a big one for them. It's you mentioned with Paint Valley beating Peebles. If you looked at the beginning of the season with how Paint Valley started, you might think, oh, that's a really bad loss. But Paint Valley's actually won 4 of their last 6 and has been playing a lot better. So not too bad of a loss there, but they do need to right the ship pretty quickly as it turns into tournament time. I believe the tournament bios are due Wednesday night. People can start voting. This will be the last year of coaches voting in Ohio as of now, as everything else is going to go to Max Preps. Now, this is one thing I'll say for Max Preps. So for the football, their state rankings are very close to what the Fantastic 50s are.
Oh, the Fantastic, okay.
Yeah, so like Fantastic 50 has the teams ranked from 1 to 715 or whatever, however many teams there are. And if you look at the total number, a lot of those are pretty close on those. So I think their algorithm's getting better. I mean, it comes down to scores have to be put in, which for volleyball, that's not really an issue because volleyball for Max Preps is really good.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a good win for North Adams. Now moving on, a wild match in the Cider Valley Conference. Kind of not necessarily a conference championship, but it was a must-win for Unioto because Adena has already played Southeastern twice. So that's really the toughest secondary team, like the third place team. And Southeastern's very good. But the SVC is very good top to bottom, so it's not easy to win anywhere. But Adena would have had a big step forward, like head start towards the league championship in that way. Both came in with 1 league loss. It goes 5. Adena absolutely dominated the first set. It was 25-10. And I was sitting up on the stage over at Unioto with Derek Webb, and he was covering it. And we both kind of laughed because it was like, we'll see how they are in the second set because they can just, Unioto can just flip it on or off.
Even Adena, like we've seen them. I mean, I know it was like the first match of the year, but you jump out 2-0 on South Webster, and then you never
kind of fell apart.
Right,
yeah. So it's just, volleyball's such a game of momentum. Unioto wins the next 2, 25-19 and 25-22. Adena wins the fourth, 28-26. Unioto actually was serving for match point on 2 different occasions in that set, and it could ultimately were not able to win it there. Then in the fourth or the fifth, it was nuts. It was 16-14 Unioto wins. They go out to an 8-1 lead. It eventually goes up to 11-4, but it was off of a rotation service point for Unioto. Like Adena had a weird mishap, long delay trying to figure out if they actually were serving out of rotation. Turns out they were. And then Unioto eventually gets to a 14-7 lead. And then Adena comes back to tie it at 14. And it was crazy. Like, so it was like they're 2 very good teams. Unioto's gym isn't the biggest, but it was, I would say, probably 80% full and loud.
I was going to say, usually Adena travels pretty well, especially whenever they have a team that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, any school is going to travel when their team is good, but Adena typically travels well anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Adena, the village has great support.
And with how, with how small that gym is, it doesn't take much to, it echoes in there.
Yes. So it was it was really cool atmosphere. So it gets to 14-14. Unioto, and this was kind of the weird thing, it was the first time, or it was only the second time after it was 14-7 that they had actually set for Ella Cutright to hit. The first one she put long. The second one she hammered down to take a 15-14 lead. And then after the serve, Adena had a hitting error, and Unioto wins in 5. It was wild. It was especially that 5th set was really wild, but it was loud. It was a really cool atmosphere. The funny part about Derek's celebration picture that he posted on the article is you see in the background a couple of Adena girls with their hands up like this. It's because the referee, I forgot to even mention this, incorrectly called them for 4 hits, but it wasn't. It was, so they
To end the game?
To end the game, they incorrectly called it. So they talked, they replayed it. So the celebration
So he left the celebration picks in from like, it wasn't even actually the
yeah, it was the original celebration, which makes it even crazier that Unioto almost lost that lead. Well, they did lose the lead, but they almost lost the match after, and I just drilled the the mic stand. But in the game, it was this really high level volleyball. It was really tough for either team to get a shot down. A lot of blocks for Adena in the match. Unioto had some nice blocks as well. Unioto now sits at 15-2. They did win. They beat Paint Valley on Thursday as well. So they're 15-2, 9-1 in the SVC. Adena drops to 10-7 overall. They're 8-2 in the SVC. They also won on Thursday. For Adena, Eva Kruger had a game high 21 kills. She's really came on late in her senior year. Brindley Preston had 14 kills. She also had 7 blocks. Katie Burns had 12 kills. Grace Townsend passed out a game high 37 assists. She was involved in 5 blocks as well. She had one of their aces in the game. I think they had 6 or 7 players with an ace. It was kind of crazy when just looking through the stats. Townsend, Cameron Sowers, Brenna, and Brooke Bossert all collected over 20 digs for the Warriors. And then Haley Howard also had 15 digs. They're just a really tough team to score on. They're just very athletic. They really move around really well. And obviously very well coached. Well, Unioto was led in kills by Ella Cutright and Abby Marshall with 14 each. Felt like at different times they each took over the match. It was the best, I believe it was the best game that Abby Marshall's played this season for them, stepping up in a really big moment. Ella Cutright and her ability to really hit right or left-handed is really fun to watch also. So it doesn't, like, as long as the set is in a pretty decent position, she can kind of decide where she's going to go with it. And I think that's pretty unique to our area. Morgan Daniels, it felt like she was everywhere. They had her for 39 digs. It felt like she had more. Like, that's crazy to say it felt like she had more than 39 digs because she was just all over the court. Megan Miller also added 15 digs for them. I believe Madeline Wetzel and Alyssa Stanley were each over 10. Alexa West also had a really good game, especially in the serve receive for Unioto. Madeline Wetzel also passed out 30 assists. She only had a single ball handling error in the match, so that's really was really important for them to set up. And then Cutright also had a match high of 4 aces for the Shermans. So once again, the crowd was dynamic. It was just outstanding overall. It was a really fun atmosphere. And yeah, just a really, really high quality volleyball game played between 2 really good teams.
And then one final match review from the last week. North Adams sort of ended the week on a bit of a gauntlet. You had Peebles on Thursday, and then you head back home and take on Wheelersburg on Saturday. Now, they do drop the match 3-0. In the game, Wheelersburg won the first set, 25-18, 25-22 in the second, and then just pretty much took over in the third. 25-8 was the score in set number 3. Wheelersburg moves on to 14-2, 10-2 in the SOC2. Pretty much outside of games against South Webster, they've just dominated everybody, right? On the season, they've lost 12 sets. 6 of them are to South Webster. And also, South Webster is the only team on their schedule so far. That's 16 games. So out of the 14 other teams, nobody has taken more than 1 set in a match. And the only teams to do that was South Webster, and they've taken 3. Yeah. So for Wheelersburg, especially once you get into tournament play, I think they're going to be dominant, just simply based on that. They take on Eastern on Tuesday. I expect them to win that. Probably finish out the year in second in the SOC2. Now for North Adams, they're still 12-4. We've mentioned how they're still undefeated in league play now. They're 3-4. Their non-league is what is a bit concerning because right now they're 3-4. Okay, now they have a loss. They have losses to Notre Dame, who hasn't lost an SOC1 match since I think 2018. And they lost to Wheelersburg, who we just mentioned. If Wheelersburg was probably in any other conference in our coverage area, would probably be in first place just because they have to play South Webster twice in the one they're in. But what's concerning for North Adams is they had a 3-0 loss to Minford, who is currently 4th in the SOC2, and that's like, okay. They lost 3-1 to Northwest, who is 6-10, 3-10 in the SOC2, and 8th. And the only reason they're 8th is because Oak Hill hasn't won a league set in that conference. So, or not a league set, but a league match. So
I was gonna say that'd be even crazier.
Or they may not.
They may not have. But.
Yeah, they may not have. But for sure, no wins in the league in terms of total matches for Oak Hill. But from that, especially once you get into tournament play, just the non-league record is a bit concerning for North Adams because they've dominated within the shack, but really outside of it, not as much. Especially when with Minford, it's like okay because we've seen them compete with teams like West, and I think they even took a set from Wheelersburg when they played. But the loss to Northwest was a bit concerning to me when I was looking at their schedule. And really, you can look throughout the entire, like if you look at Peebles, they had a 3-1 loss to Paint Valley, who is either second to last or last in the SVC.
So they're tied for 7th with Piketon.
I would assume if you took the combined non-league records between like we could probably say the top 3 in the shack are North Adams, Fairfield, and Peebles, and not Fayetteville because that was a terrible pick apparently.
Fairfield's also lost to Piketon.
Right. Yeah. So the non-league schedule, or I should say the non-league results for the shack hasn't been great. Now, I'm assuming North Adams and Wheelersburg probably, well, they're in the same division for basketball. Are they in the same division for volleyball?
Should be. I think North Adams is still Division 3.
Well, I
know they're one that like every once in a while they get close to 4, but I don't know if they ever.
I just know for basketball, North Adamsburg and West were all in the same division, so I would, and even in the same. I don't know if they were in the same district, but for sure the same region.
Yeah.
So I think
those 3. Well, they all 3 won a district.
Oh, so they were just in the same region. So depending on if they're in the same district of those schools, we could see that play a factor in the district tournament, but definitely in the regional tournament. I just think the non-league results for North Adams have been a bit concerning especially when you talk about later on in the tournament. So.
Yeah. So that's one of the things sometimes with the shack, it can be kind of difficult to gauge where they're at because it's a lot of really small communities. So when they're really good, they're really good. But sometimes, you got to go out of the league to see, test your mettle. And the good thing for North Adams is I know they're well coached, so they can at least pick up on some of these issues and hopefully make adjustments before they get to district play because they'll still have a pretty favorable road to get to the districts. It's just once you get there, then it's
and I would also,
very difficult.
And I would have to look at who's in their district and who they're set to play and all that kind of stuff.
And that's what we'll talk about next week.
Right. Yeah.
There's a preview.
Right. Yeah. So we'll jump. We only have one impact player for volleyball this week, and it's really not. It's a will be impact player. Hopefully. It's
like you never know. But Avery Cox from Chillicothe, she's 3 assists away from 1,000 for her career. She should get that on Tuesday. So tonight, she should get that on. Fingers crossed. Health is the biggest thing on that. She's at 997 right now. This is the first season that she's been the standalone ball handler in her career. She's been really good. Passing out 7.4 assists per set. She's an outstanding all-around player, which she's shown in her first 2 varsity seasons. Her sophomore year at Unioto, the last 2 at Chillicothe. She's been really good for them. This year's been even more important with the youth that they have at the net. Evelyn Hammond, only a freshman, Addison Smith, a junior. Both are having really good years hitting. And most of that's because of how good of a passer or setter. I have such a hard time not saying passer. Because I know passers are the back line.
Right.
So
ball handlers.
The ball handlers, yeah. Because you think in basketball, ball handler is also going to be your best passer probably. But yeah, so one of the things that stood out to me is she's only had ball handling errors on 2% of all of her chances this year. So 98% of the time she's setting up her teammates in a chance to actually have success. Because if not, if it's a lower number, then it's a lot, it's a lot riskier for them to try to set up their attack. So she does a really good job there. Has done a really good job, outside of Hammond and Smith, Mickey also is another player that's had a good year.
Yep.
So, they're a team that, with being Division I, it's going to be really difficult for them to do much in the Central District in the tournament, but they currently are sitting in second place in the FAC. They finished in second last year. They should probably finish second this year, as Miami Trace looks like they're going to kind of run away with that league, but they're going to finish in second, and a large part of it is because of Avery Cox and what she's been able to do for the Cavaliers this year.
And that game is at home on Tuesday against Hillsborough. They beat 3-0 last time. She had 21 assists in that game, so hopefully everything goes well there.
Yeah.
I was just looking at Chillicothe, and this wasn't on our script for today, but I just kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit. Huntington's non-league schedule, their results have been, they have wins over Notre Dame, who's clearly, dominated the SOC one for, a handful of years. They have a win over Fairfield, and these are both sweeps, but they swept Notre Dame, they swept Fairfield, they swept Chillicothe. If Huntington, the SVC is tough for volleyball, because you throw Huntington, just by looking at this, if you throw Huntington in the SOC one, they'd probably be doing close to what Notre Dame's doing. You throw them in the Shack, they could be doing that. And even like Westfall had a win over Chillicothe as well. So I don't know.
We kind of joked about it a couple years ago, where there was, when they play the district finals, they play them at Waverly High School, which is, it's so ridiculous.
Not in the downtown. Oh, yeah, never mind. Yeah. I know that. Yeah.
So Waverly has the downtown gymnasium, which everyone loves.
Sweet.
It's awesome. It's such a great place to watch basketball. It's a great place to shoot. I watched.
Well, they don't even have volleyball lines.
No, they don't. They don't play volleyball there because they play at the high school gym, which is amazing. Like that high school gym's awesome. So like they have two unbelievable gyms, and I know. We did it was like a shootout a few years ago, and we were in the middle school gym, and I'm like, this gym's so nice too. Like the middle school gym's nice.
Waverly's middle school gym.
So like Waverly has a lot of riches when it comes to their gymnasium. So, we were joking about it a couple years ago, where it was like the SEC Invitational in the district championship, because like the top 6 teams, or it's usually the top six with Unioto in there as well, because Unioto goes Division II. But the other 5 of the top 6 are usually at least at the districts, and a lot of times in the district finals. And I think it was a couple years ago where it was just all besides Wheelersburg at the time, because I think Webster was still Division IV. And then even that year, South Webster beat Paint Valley in the district finals, and Paint Valley was at the bottom of the league. So it's the SVC is certainly no joke, and we'll see that tonight on the live stream on Tuesday night. As I'll talk about this game because you're going to be calling it. Southeastern at Unioto on Tuesday night, or tonight as for this, or last night, depending on when you're watching it.
Right. Yeah. Tuesday night.
Yeah. So the first time these two met, Southeastern completely dominated. They came from behind in the first set. I believe they were down set point. I think they won at 26-24, and it was 24-19 at the time. And they come back and they win 26-24, and then they pretty much dominated the next 2 sets. For Unioto's only SVC loss, Southeastern will come in with a record of 14-3. 7-3 in SVC play. Unioto more than likely will be 16-2. They play Logan on Monday. Logan's a good team, but I think Unioto will probably be favored in that one. So Unioto will come in at either 15-3 or 16-2. 9-1 the SVC. A win here doesn't completely lock up the SVC for Unioto, but gives them a major step in that right direction. A win for Southeastern gives them a glimmer of hope that, Adena Unioto could drop another one. But, it was a dominating effort by Josie Lougheed in the first one, along with Morgan Ware. She's almost been underappreciated this year because of how good Josie Lougheed's been. Mm-hmm. But in that match, Lougheed, I believe, had 27 kills. Just utterly dominated. Unioto's only 2 losses this season have came to teams that really focus their attack on one player. And they're both big-time hitters. Lougheed, one of them. And then Christian Thompson of Fairfield Union, who we've talked about a lot because how ridiculous she is.
Well, I mean, anytime you break a school record for single-match kills like 3 times in a season, you're probably going to get talked about a lot.
She's definitely broke the old record multiple other times, too. Just,
Just not this year,
probably. Yeah, she's put her own record out there so far. 37 is crazy. For Unioto, I think one of the biggest things is they're going to really have to fortify their defense up front. Allie Park, Kyra Stolley, Zoe Detweiler have all played really well in those blocker roles. If they can get some consistency, like Zoe Detweiler in the 5th set was really good for Unioto. If she can keep that confidence going and throughout the entire match, because she had a mishit early in that match against Adena, and it seemed like her confidence was kind of shaken. And then in the 5th, she just came out and just like a ball of fire and was unbelievable. So if those 3 can really play well at the net, I think Unioto has a really good chance to get the win. But, we mentioned with Daniels and West and Miller, then you throw in Wetzel, Cutright, Jade Stewart's another one. Defensively, the back line for Unioto is very good. For Southeastern, Grace Brown is outstanding serving-wise. Chloe Wills does a great job setting up the offense. Braylee Redmond's done really well lately, especially at the net with blocking. Seems like she's coming on in her senior year. And then Jessie Higley's been a really good all-around player for them as well. So it should be a really good match. I know you and Shane Combs will have the call. Should be a fun one to watch. I know you get to a little easier setup for you on this one. Yeah. So that's one of the things we do when we look at our streaming location. I keep hitting this. I'm going to move it. Keep this in also. One of the things we look at is, places that we've done before and kind of ease of knowing that we're going to be able to stay on the internet is one of the things we do look at. It seems like we stay around the Chillicothe area a good bit, because we know that we can get into these places. Right. We're looking to go elsewhere as well, but right now this is going to be our 3rd stream and 3rd one in the Chillicothe area. So,
and like volleyball's, especially like right now, is just tough because it's during the week.
Yeah,
like I got to be in Columbus every day at like 8 a.m. Yeah, and it's just like if I had to drive, if I had to drive to South Webster to do a volleyball game on Tuesday night, I'm
it's
not going to
be really tough.
And if the game doesn't start until 7, I'm not going to get home until like 10:30, and that's
Well, then Shane does a lot, and he's an assistant principal,
right.
So I mean, it's not like he's readily available to go 2 hours away during the week. So yeah, we're gonna up our coverage during the tournament.
Yeah, I'm sure Mike and Tom will be all over the stuff.
Yes,
I mean, you talked a little bit earlier about the stuff down at Waverly. I mean, we streamed either 2 or 3 games down there last year. I think we had like 4 games at Logan. So once the tournament starts, we'll probably have just about every big game you can think of, because I don't think we even got charged for.
I wouldn't jinx it.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I don't remember, because I don't remember. But
yeah, I think with volleyball, I think it's something that we can stream a little bit more, and with how good volleyball is in this area, it'd be our pleasure to be getting those games out there, especially when games are going to be at Southeastern, games are going to be at Waverly, and they're probably going to be on the same night. I think some games will be at Jackson. I think Division 4 is at Jackson. So for people that can't get to all those places because there's only so many people.
Well, not even to like last year, typically we would do like a football game a week and then usually a volleyball game a week. But starting to do the podcast on Mondays kind of filled that availability slot that I had. So I don't know. I mean, we're going to get one this week. Hopefully we'll be able to get one next week as well, and then tournaments should be starting pretty soon. When I was looking at the schedules, most teams had like 3 or 4 games left, so hopefully by the end of next week will be about that time for tournaments.
Yeah, because it's like basketball where you can play 22. So,
like once they start playing games on like Saturday, like I can do anything on Saturday, but like it's hard to go somewhere that's 30 plus minutes outside of Chillicothe on like a weeknight because I don't know. I mean, I got to get up early in the morning. So
if you got class at 8 a.m. every day in Columbus, that makes it a little more difficult. But yeah, so just make sure you tune in tonight because that should be a really good game.
Just made the announcement like an hour ago, I think. So.
Yeah.
And then one final noteworthy game for the upcoming week. We've talked about South Webster and Notre Dame a little bit while they're squaring off this Wednesday. Pretty much the top teams in the SOC when the SOC 1 and the SOC 2, as both teams haven't lost a league match within their leagues. Just to preview, not necessarily the game, but just the teams in general. South Webster 17-0, 12-0 in the SOC2. This senior class for the Jeeps is 88-7 through their career so far. Bella Claxon and Skylar Zimmerman are among the returning seniors. Now, they still have players like Michaela Raynard, Mia Crum, and Addison Claxon, who aren't seniors but have still contributed either just this year or the past couple of years as a whole. Now, they do have a relatively big match on Tuesday when they take on West, and at least in my opinion, this is probably their last chance to lose within the league as they wrap it up with Waverly and Northwest, who are towards the bottom of the league in the SOC2. So after this Tuesday, I would say they have it just about wrapped up. Now, I don't want to say that, and then they drop a game to Northwest or Waverly, which, I mean, we saw Northwest take down well, not recently, but beat North Adams a bit earlier in the season. So, it's definitely not going to be a walk in the park. But in terms of, I don't think either of those teams have winning records. So West, in that regard, would be the last team above 500 to take down the Jeeps. Now, for Notre Dame, they're 15-2, 10-0 in the SOC1. Now, in the non-league, they do have wins over North Adams, and they also have a win over Miami Trace, which both of those teams are, as of now, leading their or leading their conferences. Miami Trace in the FAC, and then North Adams in the SHAC.
And they're bigger schools, yeah.
Right. And then I thought this was kind of funny. Within the SOC1 this season, Notre Dame has won 30 sets. How many do you think they've lost?
Oh, I'm sure they haven't gone to over 25 points.
They've lost one set within the league. 30-1.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
What would you have guessed?
I would have said 0.
Lost here? Yeah. They did. I would have to check it. I thought I wrote it down, but I think that one set loss was maybe to Clay. I can't remember exactly.
They also have a really good Twitter.
Portsmouth Clay?
No, Notre Dame. Notre Dame.
They do. They throw out graphics a good bit.
Yeah, they put out a graphic after every set.
Oh, after every set?
After every set. And sometimes it's the same one, but usually if it's the same one, it's I don't know what player it is, but they're like pointing down.
Well, there's one.
And it's like yeah, and it's the one where they're pointing down is usually when they win like 25-1 or 25-4 in a set. So, but yeah, they do a really good job with their stuff. So
I know Matt Paxton does a lot of that, and he helped us a lot with that stream down there. So I did find it. It was in the first match of the season. They lost to the third set to Sims Valley. Now they won the match 3-1, but that was their only set loss within the SOC1. Now their 2 losses. One was to Bishop Hartley, which I mean, whatever.
Yeah, and that was a Saturday, right?
Yeah, I believe it was 2-0 or 2-0, whatever they say in soccer. And then they also had a loss to Huntington, which we talked about a little bit earlier, with Huntington dominating a large part of their non-conference schedule. Now, that was the first match for Notre Dame in the season, so you can kind of factor that in a little bit. For Notre Dame, they haven't lost an SOC1 match since September 4th of 2018. Now they got swept; it was 3-0 against Clay, but they haven't lost an SOC1 match since. Now
over 5 years.
Right. And in basketball, I don't think they've lost one in probably over that same time period. But But in terms of this year's team, Lindsay Schaefer leads them with 480 assists. Brianne Hicks, 216 kills. That's a team high. They also have 3 other players with 100 or more kills: Macy Ford, Gracie Ashley, and Katie Strickland. And then, we've talked about Maddie Entler a few times on here. She leads them in digs. It's a really strong team, but, it kind of goes back to a little bit kind of how we talked about the Shack, where for the most part, it's a lot of small schools, and South Webster's not necessarily a big school, but
right.
In comparison to Shack, schools are, in this case, an SOC1 school, and even further a private SOC1 school. It's a pretty big difference. So we'll see what happens. We've been saying this a lot over the past couple of weeks when we look at non-conference games. It'll just be a nice way to see how 2 of the top, and I say the top, but the 2 best teams in these 2 conferences compare against each other. So it should be a fun match, and that is on Wednesday at Notre Dame. I've never been in their gym, so I don't know if it's as cool as the football field, but
it's definitely old school.
Old school?
Yeah. It's not very well lit.
Does Notre Dame, do they play high school baseball at Branch Rickey? Or do they have their own field?
Do.
If they don't, that's just, I feel like that's a waste.
I love Branch Rickey.
No, that's a cool place.
Yeah.
I feel like I would rather play baseball at Branch Rickey than play football at Spartan Municipal. Because, I don't know, not to
but it's
Spartan Municipal, in my opinion.
The NFL played there, though.
No, and I would love to play on the same field that, I can't even think of the guy's name now. My dad always talks about him. Jim Thorpe played on or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The concourse area and the outside of the stadium to me was a lot cooler than actually the inside.
Yeah.
But it's still, that's probably one of the cooler stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the only, there's not that many stadium. Even in my opinion, Portsmouth West, that any place that has a legitimate gate entrance, that's sweet. Jackson or Portsmouth West literally has a rock and an actual gate. If you have a gate that's cool, or at Chillicothe, that's cool.
You need to get to Wheelersburg. It's got a really cool.
I'd love to, but
right. Yeah.
we really, I'm not going to go down there for fun. Pretty much for where streaming is where I'm going, and that's pretty limited.
So and the thing with Wheelersburg is, and I'm assuming Spartans like this, there's no track, so it's you're right on top of the action.
Well, I don't think Jackson doesn't have a track either. I don't think, do they?
I don't think, but
I can't remember exactly, but I don't think so.
I think they saw the track at the old school, at the old field.
Oh, yeah.
And it's always fun to me, when you see, Jackson's old field compared to their new field with the amount of seats that they have at the new field. And the old field, you're how did people watch games here?
Yeah.
It's just one of those really cool things to me. So, but I'll tell you what place, and I'm sure, they don't have football, New Boston, where they play soccer, is so cool. That was my last win. We played, it wasn't against New Boston, it was against Alexander. We played at New Boston in the regionals, and it's it's an old school stadium as well. So it's a really cool setup.
So we'll jump into some golf and
so
cross
I also,
country.
Where I mentioned, cross country, we're getting into conference meets coming up this week. We'll talk about that a little bit more. We do actually have a cross country. We do cover cross country now at SOSA.
Yep.
So Garrett does a really good job.
Believe it or not.
Yeah. Garrett's done a good job getting out there and getting a lot of pictures done, covering some meets, especially on the kind of Highland County,
Say it again.
I almost said Fairfield County. Highland County.
Oh, Highland County Press.
Yeah, he's a lot over on the Highland County side right now, but I know he'll get out and do some more across the district coming up. So it's a pretty exciting time for SOSA. At least we're expanding slowly but surely in that way. Something we literally never talk about, girls tennis has sectionals this week. So I know Notre Dame has a really good team. Wheelersburg has a good team. Unioto went 15-4 this fall as a team. I know South Point has a really good individual. So hopefully we can get something from tennis, and maybe talk about that next week. But
so where is the down on the farm cross country invitational?
Rio.
Rio.
Yeah.
Oh, because Bob Evans.
Bob Evans,
okay. Yeah. Well, I just saw that we have somebody going down there to take pictures
Let's go.
on Wednesday. So
Yeah.
yeah. So who do you know exactly who all would go? I mean, I'm guessing it's some
It's
SOC.
a pretty big one. So
is
I
it?
bet, yeah. So,
And probably like a lot of SOC schools because that's kind of where Rio.
Rio's by
TVC-ish.
Gallia.
Oh, Gallia, man.
Yeah.
I'm
So
way
it's be
off.
more like,
Probably get some people across the river, maybe even. Come
yeah,
up for
it's
that.
it's a really good meet. Which is surprising that we knew that's a good meet to go to.
Yeah,
So
we'll
let's
have
go.
some-
Let's go, SOSA.
We'll have some pictures from that.
Yeah.
on
So,
Wednesday.
but moving on to golf, golf sectionals were this past week. Individual champions on the boys' side. I said I was going to start with them, but I'm going to finish with them.
Okay.
You know, the big one. Stanley Viney from Alexander shot a 77 to win his sectional. Eli Ford shot a 75 for Ironton St. Joseph. Now, these are all different courses, so some of these numbers can be
All right. Depend-
yeah. So they might seem like, oh, these are, a big difference. Brady Gill shot a 72 from Wheelersburg to win his sectional. Cameron Phillips from Lucasville Valley shot a 66 to win his sectional.
Those are like some VA numbers.
Yeah. So Phillips has been really good for Valley for the last couple of years. So it's, really impressive by him. Sectional champion teams. Now this is for Division II and Division III. Girls, there's only 2 divisions. Boys, there's 3. Wheelersburg, Sheridan, Colegrove, and West Union were sectional champions as teams. And district play will start this week, so we'll have some results from district play and people going on to the state level on next week's show. On the girls' side, individual sectional champions, Jordan Belleville from Gallia Academy shot a 79 to win her sectional. Sydney Belleville from Ironton shot a 77. The most impressive part of that is she won by 18 strokes. And then what I would say, I hope these 3 played together. I'm sure they didn't, but Elena Seeley from Circleville won her sectional with a 67. She won by 2 strokes over Paige Weiss from Westfall with a 69, and Taylor Ralston from Manchester with a 70.
So, is high school golf just kind of on the honor system, or do they have people that go around?
So,
I would, if it's on the honor system, I couldn't play golf. I couldn't play high school golf.
So they play. I believe they play groups of 4. So you
probably keep everybody.
Checking everybody else. I think they keep track of everybody's scores. So
if you're playing with 3 other people, you keep those 3 people's. That's probably pretty. I bet those are probably long days.
Yeah.
When you go out there too.
Yeah. So especially when you're playing the 18 hole ones.
Yeah.
The 9 hole is not as bad, but yeah, especially if you're playing with somebody that's not very good. I've played golf with myself before, and I know that can sometimes go really long.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are the individual sectional champions, and the girls sectional champions were Circleville, Gallia Academy, and Ironton. Now, I'm just going to throw out this. Circleville shot a 326. Gallia shot a 415 to win their sectional. So Westfall, not winning their sectional, I think they shot like a 341, is nothing to hang their heads about.
Right.
As we'll see how they do this week in district play. And then get some players onto the regionals as well. So, or not the regionals, but the state level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we can move on to boys soccer now.
Some game reviews from the last week. A couple. I don't know, not necessarily. At least one of them was a bit surprising to me, especially considering how their last meeting went. But
I know you've done it before. Or I'm going to ask you this. If you can't do it, maybe cut this out of the episode. But if you could put the video I posted on Twitter to show how foggy it was at this game. Wheelersburg at Northwest.
Was it foggy or rain?
Fog. The entire way I drove down, it rained the whole way. And then it stopped right before the boys' game started. So it rained during the girls' game, which Wheelersburg won. And then as the boys' game was getting ready to start, it was like 10 minutes before, it wasn't raining anymore. Well, that brought in the fog because at the half it was 0-0. It was Wheelersburg Northwest 0-0. Really, Northwest did a really good job of keeping Wheelersburg out of the penalty box. Like they weren't getting close shots. They had a large shot advantage, but they weren't able to like really get much on goal at all. Logan Shepard did a good job for Northwest when there were shots. But about 17 minutes into the second half, Max Hagens did something that maybe you wouldn't think Max Hagens does as much, but he is a very good passer as well. He set up Connor Estep, which is kind of a fun flip on that because Estep's only scored 4 goals with 14 assists on the year, and Hagens with 35 goals and I believe 8 assists on the year. So he sets up Connor Estep for a goal, and I start making my way down because I was in the press box because I'm thinking it's going to rain at any time. So I'm like, okay, let's start making my way down to the field, and I might have brought the fog with me because it was sitting up pretty high with about actually. I don't want to say about because it was exactly because it's very important for the times on this. At 13:03, Hagens set up Ethan Huckstetler for a goal of his own to make it 2-0. 13:03 is the important part of that. At 12:26, Northwest cut it to 2-1 on a Jay Jenkins goal. That was just beautiful. It's from the right side. He saw the Wheelersburg goalkeeper out a little bit and played it perfectly into the side netting on the opposite side of the goal. Really good goal. So that was at 12:26. At 12:01, Evan Mitchell tied the match. So within 62 seconds, Northwest went from being down 2-0 to being tied at 2. Mitchell actually got a steal, and then he made a couple moves and then ripped a left-footed shot. And this is, where the slickness from all the rain earlier, I think, really benefited because Braden Bird got down quickly, but it ended up kind of skipping over his hand as he got down to tie the game at 2. And it felt like Northwest had all the momentum, and I'm not sure if I had it written down, but I'm not sure if Wheelersburg had another shot after that because it felt like it was all Northwest because they had so much momentum going. With about 6 minutes left, I had a video, which is what I'm hoping you can get on there, where like you literally can't see what's going on. And I had tweeted it out, and literally 15 seconds later, they blow the whistle to stop play, and I thought, oh, there must be a penalty or a foul that I couldn't see. And then I hear the official on the far side of the field goes, guys, go to your bench. I can't see anything. So they delayed it with 5:44 left, and they eventually came back on and played the last.
How long was it delayed?
It was about 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes. And it was, they probably could have started about a minute earlier, but it's a good thing they didn't wait another minute because by the end of the game, it was back. You really couldn't see again. But it was, they had a little window where they could see, and it was just, ends up at a 2-2 tie. So it's not a blemish for Wheelersburg, but it's their first non-win of the season. So they dropped to, I believe they're 12-0-1 at this point.
Well, how about Northwest? A win over Minford, and then you tie Wheelersburg.
Yep.
So where does that?
10,
are they still
10-3-1? Yeah. So they're still in third right now in the SOC 2. They're right with South Webster. South Webster might only have the 3 losses because I don't think they played Minford a second time yet. So it's really interesting. Like that race, I'll be shocked if the 4 teams playing for district titles aren't the top 4 from the SOC. Yeah. Like if it's not South Webster, Minford's Division 2 now, I guess. So somebody else is going to come in. But if it's not Southwest, if it's not Southwest or Southwest, South Webster, Wheelersburg, and Northwest, that's 3 of the 4 teams. I'll be surprised. Minford, it's going to be a little tougher road as they got to go D2, and that's going to be. That's
surprising. Is Minford bigger than Wheelersburg?
Yeah, they had a big competitive balance number last year, so they'll probably drop back down after this year because I think the competitive balance number switches. Like your enrollment doesn't switch every year, but your competitive balance does. So if let's say they graduated a bunch of kids that had moved into the district, well, then they won't count anymore after that.
Right.
So, so really, like Wheelersburg, I feel like is still head and shoulders above everyone else overall, but Northwest has really played well. Caleb Lewis, he didn't score that night, but he had a couple of just rockets that Braden Bird did a really good job stopping. And then with Mitchell, only a sophomore, playing with seniors in Lewis and Jenkins, Mitchell's going to be a big-time player. Yep. Him and Nick Sylvia will probably run the league for the next couple of years, along with Miles Montgomery, of course. So, big-time match. It was a really fun match.
Mm-hmm. And then going up to the MSL, it seems like we may have our league champ just a couple of games away. Fairfield Union runs the table after tying Bloom Carroll 1-1 earlier in the season, takes a 4-3 win over Teays Valley at home. They were the final 2 undefeated teams in the MSL, and as of now, it looks like Fairfield Union might get it done here. As they had goals from Caleb Redding, Cole Rowley, Selah Alcorn, and Caleb Schmelzer, and it's a lot of fun names there. Caleb Schmelzer. Schmelzer actually had the lone goal in the second half that actually put them ahead 4-3, ended up being the final. Now 3 games remaining for Fairfield. They're at Hamilton on Wednesday of this week. Now, obviously, that's a league game. Then Saturday, they're against Granville at home. And then next Wednesday...
That's going to be a big one, because Granville's ridiculous.
Did Unioto? No, Unioto played.
Girls have played Granville.
Okay.
And they lost them in the regional final? It might have been the regional semis. A couple straight years.
And then next Wednesday, Fairfield Union is at home against Circleville. So their last 2 league games are this Wednesday and next Wednesday at Hamilton. I think Hamilton was like 2-8 on the season. And then Circleville, I can't remember the record. I think they were above 500.
Yeah, but they kind of lowered their schedule a little bit, but they got a new coach, and it seems like they've got some positive energy back in the program for Circleville. I don't think that'll be much of a match, but Circleville has done much better this year than they have the last couple of seasons.
So Circleville is 8-4-2 overall. They are 0-4-1 within the MSL. So non-league, they're 4-0-1, but they haven't won a league match. So when you look at that, it's like, well, Fairfield Union should be, because between Hamilton Township and Circleville, they have 2 league wins. So actually, I think Hamilton
must have both of them.
Hamilton tied with Circleville the first time, and they only play once. Apparently, I thought they do only play once, right? So those 2 teams tied. So just using that example, they're about on the same level ish. So, for Fairfield Union, not to jinx them, but really, it looks like the hard part is over with. Now you just got to take care of business these last 2 league games and, dethrone Bloom Carroll as the league champ, take that undefeated title away from Teays Valley, and now you're going to potentially get out of there with a league championship at whatever that would be, 6-0-1. So,
yeah, they're going to go in. I would say they'll probably be the 3 seed in the district, and it's either them or Athens is going to be the 2. Merida's the 1, and then Fairfield Union and Athens will be pretty heavy favorites to make it both to the district final, as 2 teams get out of the district in boys soccer this year, and so I would think that Fairfield Union has an excellent chance to win a district. Sign me up for a Fairfield Union and Athens district final.
And some noteworthy games that are going on this week. This first one actually going on on the boys and the girls side. We'll talk about the girls side here in a little bit. But Jackson at Chillicothe. This is the second meeting between these 2 teams. They actually tied the first time around, and this is potentially the FAC championship match here. This is the final league match for both schools. For Chillicothe, they're 5-0-1. Jackson is 4-0-2. that other tie. Well, for Chillicothe first, obviously that one tie with Jackson. And for Jackson, they had the tie with Chile, and then also a 0-0 tie with Hillsborough in their second meeting after beating them 6-2 in the first time. Now, both teams do have matches before this Thursday meeting. For Jackson, they take on Miami Trace at home. They beat them 6-1 the last time. And then for Chillicothe, they have 2 home games this week, one against Jackson a little bit later on, and then on Tuesday as well, when they take on Hillsborough. They beat them 4-2 in their last meeting. So, let's just hypothetically say both teams win. So Chillicothe will come in 6-0-1, Jackson 5-0-2. Pretty much the winner wins the league. I assume that 6-1-2 is better than 5 or whatever 6. Man, I just all the ties just completely throw me off.
So, if they would tie again, then it's Chillicothe because they would have what they will. I mean, not everyone goes by a point system, but if you look at how most soccer does, since they have ties, a tie is 1 point. A win is 3 points.
Right, so it would be
wins are more valuable, obviously.
Right, so Jackson, if Jackson won out and beat Chillicothe, and Chillicothe won and then lost to Jackson, Jackson would finish 6-0-2, Chillicothe 5-1-1.
Yeah, so they would have more points because of
Right. So pretty much.
Big one.
An FAC, and on both sides
and
too.
This is one of those where, if we had reliable internet, we would be streaming at this.
Probably both of them.
We talked about this Sunday night. I had said, "Hey, let's try to stream this," and you said, "We've tried before, and it's just
a couple times."
Yeah, and it's just not very good service. So that's why we're not going to be streaming that soccer, which is probably better for people that don't want to listen to my voice because
the band's playing.
Yes, of course, yes. The band is out on the field. Don't necessarily want to hear me on that. So another one, and this one is going to be. I'm glad that they're going. If nothing else on why they're going to max preps, I'm glad they're going to max preps for this reason. This game between Wheelersburg and Zane Trace on Saturday literally means nothing as far as the district goes, or seeding goes. So it's a game purely for pride, and Wheelersburg will most likely, unless something real crazy happens, come into that matchup undefeated still. Because I think they just have West before that. And then Zane Trace is currently 7-2. They've played not very many games. They had 2 games canceled last week, one for supposed weather that never came.
Oh, that was with Fairfield, wasn't it? I remember you talking
about that. The
weather
did not happen. And then the other one was with Athens, which was pushed back because of a lack of officials, which is insane. That you would think that officials would want to do a game like that.
Where it's cooler?
Well,
or do you mean what did you mean by a game like that?
Athens and St. Trace are good teams.
Oh, that game got canceled. Yeah. I thought you were talking about Fairfield.
No, not that one. Where it's 2 good teams, and you would think that, maybe you would want to do that over games with teams that aren't very good. Right. So I would think you'd want to make sure you get on that game scheduled, but they're actually going to play that one on the 4th, so that is Wednesday. So Zane Trace has a tough week. I believe they play on Monday in an SVC match.
Zane Trace.
Yeah, I would guess with Piketon, unless Westfall plays Piketon, because Unioto's got Southeastern. And so this is a matchup between, it's after teams submit their picks. So its picks are due on Friday night at midnight. So why wouldn't they just be due on Saturday? Because you're just counting votes.
They're at home against Piketon, who is 0-10.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. So they'll have that win. So they'll be 8-2 going into Athens. Athens is really tough. So that'll be a tough game for them. But this one will be
Athens and Wheelersburg in the same week.
That's tough. Especially after you didn't play last week.
And they did reschedule the Fairfield game to October 14th.
Okay, good.
As their last game. But right before that, they play Ironton St. Joe. So, and you've covered them a couple times.
Yeah, they're pretty strong.
Did Ironton St. Joe beat Northwest? I don't remember what. Because I know Or no, that
It
was Valley. Never mind.
They beat Valley the first time, which I'll actually, kind of mention that on the game reviews. They actually tied.
10-2-1.
They tied last week, Valley and Ironton St. Joe in their second match. But Ironton St. Joe will have the advantage as they have one league game left, and I think it's New Boston. They won't lose that.
That's tomorrow.
Yeah, so they'll win that, and so they'll win the SOC one, which your boy picked that one.
They got to play North Adams on Thursday too, so that'll be a good game as well.
So where's that game at?
That game is at Ironton St. Joe.
Either one's really far for me. It's not like North Adams is the easiest drive, but maybe I'll get out to that because I don't have anything set for Thursday.
How far is Ironton St. Joe from Ironton?
I'm sure it's in the city, but
I didn't know if you knew.
I've never been to St. Joe.
Okay.
So I've been to Ironton once.
So I haven't been down there either.
Yeah,
that's a far
but
way.
it's nice with the 823 bypass. It helps so much. So like years ago, like right before SOSA started, I probably wouldn't have gone down to Wheelersburg to watch as many games as I have. But you just get right on the road. And it's right there.
Yeah.
It cuts off probably 20, 25 minutes. Yeah. So, but that's not what we're discussing.
Right.
So Wheelersburg at Zane Trace. For Zane Trace, this is a big game for them to try to get some confidence going against some of the better teams. They have an outstanding goalkeeper in Judah Hanks. We talked about him a couple weeks ago. Their offense has been pretty strong this year. Reese Allen, I believe, will still be out for that game as he's nursing a lower leg injury that he had in the Unioto game. He had been super dynamic before that. They moved Jordan Harrington, who'd been a 3-year starter on defense now, up to forward and being more involved in the offense, and he has done a good job for them. And then Ivan and Marco Chavez have done a really good job offensively for them. As Marco's a senior, Ivan has been outstanding. I think Ivan is probably going to be close to the county assist record after next year. Drew Basil of Chillicothe has that, as it's really high.
Yeah. I assume so.
Yeah. But the offense for Wheelersburg, Max Hagens, obviously you know him. Nick Sylvia's got 13 goals, 13 assists on the year. Ethan Hochstedler has 10 goals on the season. And Connor Eastep, 4 goals, 14 assists on the season. Their defense is anchored by sophomore Kason Witt. They've only allowed 2 goals in a game twice this season, which was the Union game. They won 3-2 in the Minford game. Well, I guess it's 3 times. Minford game they won 4-2, and then Northwest was 2-2. So only given up 9 goals in the season, only given up 2 3 times, have not given up more than 2. And for Zane Trace, their defense is going to have to really step up because if you're going to slow down that offensive attack of Wheelersburg. So that'll be 3 o'clock on Saturday. Should be a really nice game, a nice day. So actually, Saturday's when it drops. So it could be very cold. Yeah. Friday's supposed to be nice, and then it's supposed to drop really big. So we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. Now we'll talk a little bit about some girls soccer. We have one review from last week, along with an impact player from that game, then a couple previews for the upcoming week. But for the match review, I always mix those up when I say
Yes, it's all right.
But for the match review from last week, this was a game that I think we kind of highlighted on the schedule, like all the way back in the previews when we first started the show for the fall sports season. It was North Adams at Lynchburg-Clay. We were talking about how this was probably going to be a battle of the 2 best teams within the shack in terms of girls soccer, and it proved to be more or less just that. Lynchburg-Clay takes it 1-0. The lone goal was scored by Jade Massey. Lynchburg-Clay now 7-0-4, 3-0-1 within the shack. North Adams 7-4, 3-2 in the shack. For Lynchburg, they're now all alone in second place within the league, still trailing behind Fairfield, I believe. They had that within the league. They had just had that tie that was 1-1 against Eastern Brown. That's their only non-win. They do have a big match coming up this week, which you'll talk about in a second. But for North Adams, they were 7-1. Now they've lost 3 straight. They lost to Fairfield and Lynchburg, which as of now are the 2 best teams in the shack record-wise. Then you lose to Minford, who is pretty much one of the best that the SOC2 has to offer. Now they have Peebles, Fayetteville, and Hillsborough this week, so 3 good chances to get back on track. They still have a winning record in both overall and within the league, so nothing to hang your head about too much. Still a good team, and
they've just struggled to score lately. Is the biggest thing. Is once they can kind of figure out the offensive attack a little bit more, they'll be right back on the winning road. I would guess.
Well, I mean, and we talk about how good Lynchburg-Clay is. They held them to 1 goal. They just couldn't net their own. So.
Yeah. So going to our impact player, you mentioned her, Jade Massey. I actually put her down as the impact player before I saw what she did on Saturday. She had 9 goals last week. I only had her for 4 before that. So she had a 5-goal game on Saturday. She had the game-winning goal against North Adams. Stephen Forsha from the Highland County Press, actually, he tweeted out the video of the goal, and Lynchburg put together like 7 passes in real quick succession before hitting Massey, and then she finished with a really nice finish. Like it was beautiful. It looked like something that as a coach you dream that your team's going to do it in a practice situation, that they do it that well, and that they did it in a game situation, and they were able to hold on to a 1-0 victory there. She actually had a hat trick against Unioto on Thursday, which Unioto has. I'm going to throw out a really sad stat. In their last 8 games, they've scored 7 goals. 7 of those were in 1 game. They've been shut out 6 times out of their last 7 games. Now their schedule's gotten really tough, obviously with Lynchburg being in there. But they actually had a 1-0 win against Athens where they had a couple players get hurt, and since then they've just not been able to. They do play Southeastern Unioto, so they should get back in the scoring column a little bit, but.
They had 11-0 against Piketon.
Oh, okay. So it must be.
So they've scored 18 goals in the last, whatever you said, 8 or whatever games, and they've had goals in 2 of those, but still nonetheless.
Still pretty crazy.
Lynchburg, Fairfield tied with Circleville 0-0. Marietta, Warren.
Yeah, Jackson was in there,
and even and before the Zane Trace game, Jackson and Chillicothe as well.
So kind of a murderer's row in that, right? But for Massey, she had 5 goals in their Saturday game. She currently leads the shack with 22 goals on the year. The team's only scored 41, and she scored 22 of them. So she's been a major, and that was for me coming into the season was kind of the big thing for Lynchburg, was replacing Tipton. I can't think of the girl that was district player of the year last year.
Was it the girl that played basketball too?
Yeah, she only played for 1 season. Oh my gosh!
Because we just did that last minute game at Miami Trace for basketball. And
you know what? I don't care. I'm looking it up. I don't care how this is. I've got it. I've got the thing pulled up right now, so I don't want to not mention the girl that was unbelievable.
And they went to the Final Four. Yeah, because I remember you were over there. I think I don't know if you were there. Kaylin Rich. Yeah. Because you guys were over there covering that game while myself, Mike, and Tom were just across the way at the gym for the volley. I don't remember what game it was, but for one of the volleyball tournament games.
Yeah, it was one of those it doesn't make sense on why certain games are places, because they beat I believe they beat Grandview Heights in the regional final. It was at Logan, and if you've never been in Logan's press box, it is unbelievable. It's the whitest press box I've ever been in for high school. Then it's got 2 levels.
Whitest or white?
Wide. Well, it's also white. It's painted white, but it's very wide, and it's 2 levels. It's really good.
Do they play any football playoff games?
Yeah,
there?
they play some football playoff games, and
but that's probably week 13, 14.
Right. Yeah.
Well, maybe somebody in our area will make it that far, and
it's beautiful.
What was it, TKDS or whatever it was?
Yes.
They don't take over there. But
have fun with those guys. So
Carson did.
yes. So we go from Logan, where it's got this beautiful press box, and then we went to Anderson in Cincinnati, which is a nice area. It was terrible. Like, there was bugs all throughout the press box. Like, it was like, why is this I know why it was a state game, because it was a girls' soccer game. So they're just like, oh, somebody wants to host this, they can take it. It's like, no, it wasn't a nice facility anyway. But I got to watch Lynchburg down there. So for Massey, she's got 63 career goals. She's been a key member of 3 district championship teams and 1 regional championship team. Lynchburg has been a machine throughout the last few years, especially, but throughout her high school career as well. So big time player that we definitely deserve to be highlighted.
Yep. So we'll wrap it up with a couple noteworthy games this upcoming week. That'll just about do it for today's episode. The first one is one we talked about just for a moment a little bit earlier on. It's Jackson at Chillicothe, but this is girls now, but sort of similar situation. For Jackson, they had a 3-2 win over Chillicothe in their last meeting. That was at Jackson, and I didn't check it because I thought I just remembered it off the top of my head. I think that was their first win over Chile since 2014. So it had been a little while, and a chance now to even do it twice in one season. Now, Jackson, 10-1-2 overall, 7-0-1 in the FAC. That one tie was with Miami Trace. Now, it gets a little bit interesting because before that Thursday match, they do have a game against Miami Trace on Tuesday. Now, for Chillicothe, they're 6-6-1, 5-2-1 in the FAC. They had losses to Hillsborough and then the loss to Jackson, and also had a tie with McLean last Thursday. Now, before this match against Jackson on Thursday, they have a meeting with Hillsborough. So both teams have meetings with teams that they have non-wins against. For Jackson, it's just the tie with Miami Trace, and then Chillicothe dropped to Hillsborough 2-1 in their last meeting. Now, for Chillicothe, in order for them to win the FAC, because it's still possible, or at least it's possible to get a share, they would have to win out, right? So they're going to have to beat Hillsborough on Tuesday. They're going to have to beat Jackson on Thursday. Now, what they need for Jackson to do is lose out. They need Jackson to drop to Miami Trace, and I don't think it can be a tie. I think it has to be a loss. They have to have Jackson lose to Miami Trace, which they did tie the first time around, and then they have to beat Jackson on Thursday. If all those happen, if all of that happens, I believe it would be a tie between Chile and Jackson at the top. I would have to check my math there, but I believe that would be correct. So, if Jackson now obviously we'll see what happens with both of those games tomorrow night, but if Jackson drops to Miami Trace, that Thursday night game will get, I'm assuming that is probably like a 5 o'clock start, and then the boys is like a 7 or 7:30 start that day. But if Jackson were to drop to Miami Trace on Tuesday, that Thursday night game would get a lot more interesting.
Yeah, our Brock Netter is supposed to be there for both games, so because it's just listed as soccer instead of B SOC or G SOC, since it's a doubleheader and they're both big time games, so it should be a really good night for soccer at the Bobo track, the Herdenstein Field. O.co arena. So, and then Friday, Football Friday, Shaction style, big time match. It's a league championship match. Lynchburg-Clay at Fairfield. Lynchburg-Clay 7-0-4 coming into the week.
Brock potentially will be there. We'll see.
Ooh, that's good. That's gonna be tough just to get down there because it's an early start.
Well, if Brock backs out, maybe you can take that over for.
Well, because we're at Unioto on Friday, so I mean,
when Brock would be going from Fairfield to Hillsborough.
Yeah, so that's a little closer. So he's got that. So Lynchburg-Clay at Fairfield. Lynchburg-Clay 7-0-4, but they do have the one tie to Eastern. Well, Fairfield is 9-1 overall. They are unbeaten in shack play, and they have Fayetteville coming up, who's 3-2 in the league, but had sizable losses to Lynchburg and North Adams. So I think they should take care of business there. Setting up for that big time matchup on Friday. And really, I don't want to throw it out there that if Fairfield ties, they're going to win the league.
Right.
Because, that would put them at 1 tie and Lynchburg at 2, so they would be able to have more points overall. So, for Lynchburg with Massey, they also feature Aubrey Slack and Autumn Wilkin, who can also score. So they have a good attack. They haven't done a ton of scoring this year, but they've played such a good non-league schedule. They do have a really weird tie with Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy. It's 1-9-1. And they tied them, who I know plays a really good schedule, but still that was kind of surprising. Mm-hmm. But they tied state-ranked Grandview Heights a couple weeks ago. They tied.
They tied four. I think we've even talked about it a little bit. That is because we all know I'm not like huge into this. Four's got to be a lot of ties.
Four's is a lot. Season. Yeah. They tied Western Brown, who was 7-1-1. Now, when you mentioned ties, though. Lynchburg, when they made it to the regional final in 2020, they were 10-3-7.
And 7 ties.
So they had only won half of their games that year, but they only lost 15%. Yeah. And so this is a big matchup. So Lynchburg's going to have those different options to score because the Fairfield defense has been unbelievable this year. Goalie Claire Newkirk with 5 shutouts. And overall, they've only given up like 3 goals in the season, so it's a.
Was this for Fairfield?
Yeah.
Wasn't there was a basketball player for them whose name was Newkirk? Like it was the first year I did stuff with SOSA. Man, I can't remember her name. I wonder they've got it. Fairfield's not that big, is it? They've got to be related somewhere.
Probably.
I can't remember her name.
Well, they have Riley Quickle who plays. Her sister used to play, but she just committed somewhere, which we'll talk about in the spring for
name's Caitlin
Quickle, yeah, a really, really good pitcher. But their back line features Landry and Avery Teeters, along with Emmy Vance, and they've just been lights out defensively this year. They have not played as strong of a schedule as Lynchburg-Clay, but they've taken care of business when 9 of the 10 games they've played. Now, they did have a week off last week because of weather, I guess, for the one night with St. Trace, and then Southeastern, that game got pushed to October 11th, so they did not play last week. So, they have a chance to knock off some rust against Fayetteville on Wednesday, and then, got a big one. It's going to be, Ava Hooper, Faith Donnelly, Kennedy Zink. It's an outstanding attack. They've got freshman Vivian Henninger has done a good job for them this year. Hannah Hamilton's another one that helps out defensively. It's a team that is dangerous with Fairfield as Lynchburg with a lot of experience. Caitlin Collins also has 5 shutouts for them in the goal. Lynchburg is a battle-tested team, but Fairfield, a lot of seniors, very hungry. This one should be a really fun game to watch. Friday at, I believe, 4:30.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's probably a little bit of an earlier.
Yeah.
Even though it's Friday football.
But the boys' game is late as of now. That could be like when I went down to Fairfield and North Adams and they switched the game times because really the girls' game is the bigger game that night. So we'll kind of see. Hopefully it stays with that normal schedule so Brock can get to both.
All right.
So should be another good week of volleyball, golf, cross country, tennis, and soccer in the SOSA area.
Yep, should be a fun week. And John, unless you have anything extra to add on here, I believe that'll just about do it here on this.
Let's go fish.
This edition of SOSA Overtime.
They knocked our teams out, so
nobody knocked the Reds out.
The Reds knocked the Reds out.
We had
the Cubs also knocked the Cubs out.
We had the head-to-head over every team except for the Marlins, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So, tough season. Winning season, though.
Yeah.
David Bell has 3 winning seasons in the last 4, so, last year was pretty bad, but I think it was 30... It's like 31-29, and then like 82-80, and then whatever last year was.
That was ugly. Then sorry, as a Cubs fan, it was still ugly.
No,
I felt bad.
What did we lose? 21 straight.
It's a start, wasn't it? Or was it
when
like
to start? We went like 1-2 against the Braves to open the year, and then went like 500 or something the next like 4 or 5 games, and then lost just 21 straight.
That's so bad. Lose for 3 straight weeks.
No, that was bad.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think we're on the uprise, but
They are.
For today's, I think that'll do it.
I ain't got nothing left.
All right, well, that'll do it for today's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by McDonald's.
Go Cubs, go.